X plus 1 squared.
Perfect. That's equaling 1. All right, Gabby Snyder, what's next?
So you have to divide both sides by 4.
Awesome. Gabby Soul, what comes next?
You would take the square root of 1/4.
Yeah, we're going to take the square root of both sides. We'll get x plus 1. And Gabby Soul, do you know what the right-hand side would become when we have root 1/4?
No. I did the problem wrong, so okay. I don't have it down.
Grace, do you know what root 1/4 would be?
I also did this one wrong, but wouldn't we square root 1 and 4 and then multiply it by square root of 4/4, and then it would become square root of 4/4?
Yes, that's exactly what we would do if these don't simplify. But what is the square root of 1?
1.
Yeah, and what's the square root of 4?
2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're good. You're not the only one that probably said that as well. So make sure you simplify taking those square roots first. Because that root 1/4, we know we're going to split it between the top and bottom, and we can take the square root of both 1 and 4. So then we'd have to subtract that 1 over. So -1 plus or minus 1/2. We could get our two different answers. So one will be -1 plus 1/2, and the other one will be -1 minus 1/2, which would give us -1/2 and also -3/2. And there are two different answers. Questions on this one? All right, now let's also look at 31. This was that word problem. So this said, the aspect ratio of a widescreen TV is the ratio of the screen's width to its height, or 16:9. What are the width and height of a 32-inch widescreen TV? So they want us to find the width and the height. So that's this length and this length. And they're giving us that to be 16x and 9x. And then the diagonal, that's actually how you measure TVs. I personally didn't know that until a few years ago, that a 32-inch TV is the length from corner to corner. I actually didn't know that for a long time. So how are we going to find that x? We need to find that x. Here was an idea as to how we could figure that out here. They're saying hint. There's a hint there. We have a volunteer. What about Valerio?
You could put 16x as A and 9x as B and 32 as C and use Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah. We know a squared plus b squared equals c squared for Pythagorean theorem. So we'd have 16x squared plus 9x squared equals 32 squared, using that Pythagorean theorem. When we do that, we will get 256x squared, because we distribute that x squared to both parts in there. 16 squared is 256, and then we have x squared plus 81x squared equals 1024, which is 32 squared. So that was the trick there, remembering the Pythagorean theorem and plugging in what we know. We would add that 256 plus 81x squared, which would give us 337x squared, equaling 1024. Jaden, what could we do next?
You could take 1024 and divide it by 337.
Yeah. And we also have that squared there. So we'll have to take the square root of both sides. So we would have x equaling the square root of this. 337 doesn't go into 1024 evenly. So you could just plug this whole thing into your calculator. Square root of 1024 divided by 337 in your calculator. And someone with a calculator, tell me what they get.
1.74.
Yeah. Now we have to remember, we have to plug this back into our original problem to explain the answer. That this is just the value for x, and they still want us to tell what the length and width are. So we know that's 16 times x, so then we'd have to multiply that 16 times 1.74 and that 9 by 1.74, because that's what they said the width and the length are. When you do that, you'll end up getting 27.9 and 15.7. So it's about 27.9 inches by 15.7 inches. Questions here? Okay, also wanted to look at, is anyone still working on 31? Okay. All right, I also wanted to look at the 10 through 15. We're not going to do all of them, but just what approach you took and why. So they're saying solve. So we need to solve them somehow. So for the first one, for 10, we have x squared minus 3x minus 40. Malachi, can you tell me what approach you took to solve number 10?
I believe it's factoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So the next part of it would be x squared plus 5x minus 8x minus 40 equals 0.
Good. We saw that factors of negative 40 would be 5 and negative 8 that add to negative 3. So we could factor there. For 11, Lacey, what did you do for 11?
I factored that also, and I got r minus 6 and r minus 7.
Awesome. So Lacey saw that factors of positive 42 could be negative 6 and negative 7 to add to that negative 13. So we would factor there too. For 12, Madison, what approach did you use to solve?
I also factored this one, I factored this one too.
Yeah.
So I got negative 14 and 1, and then you have to the 2w, you pull that out of the first one, and then you put w minus 7 for the first parentheses, and then 1, and then w minus 7 for the second.
Yeah, so we would have AC grouping here. So we have 2 times negative 7, which is negative 14, and factors of negative 14 could be, so I think we have it a little backwards here. So it's positive 13. So this 14 would need to be positive, and then the 1 would be negative.
Yeah, on that answer key, I had the two numbers flipped, it was negative 7 and positive 1/2, but I couldn't figure figure out what I did wrong there.
Maybe that answer key was wrong. Would we like to go through it? Raise your hand if you were confused on that one. Well, it looks like you found the error. So yeah, our factors here would be positive 14 and negative 1 to go to positive 13. And we would use AC grouping. All right, for 13. Julia, what did you do?
I did the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, so we can't, if you notice that you don't want to factor, then then you can use the quadratic formula. Did anyone use a different way?
I factored this one.
Yeah, Valerio, what factors did you get?
15 and negative 4.
Yeah, so if you didn't see that it factored, you could use the quadratic formula and you would still get the same answer. But we could actually factor this one. So that'd be negative 60, and then factors of negative 60 would be 15 and negative 4 to add to positive 11. Very nice. For 14, what approach should we take for 14? Annabelle, what approach did you use to solve?
I used square roots.
Yes, when we see that binomial squared, we know we want to take square roots. We divide by 2 on both sides so that m minus 7 squared equals 8, that binomial's by itself, and then we could take square roots on both sides. Good. And lastly, for 15, Alyssa, what approach did you use for 15?
I moved the 12 over.
And then what?
I could take the square root.
Yeah, we can take square roots. We see that binomial squared. Good. Big part of these problems are seeing what approach you should take for factoring. Questions on those? Okay. So if you have any more questions on the homework, then you can ask. But we want to give you this time to start your review for the weekend. This is a graphing review. So there's 6 problems with those 3 different methods that we talked about. You should take those summary pages that we did the last 2 days, that first one where we actually graphed a function in each of those forms, and then also that summary page that we did yesterday. So this one you should definitely keep close to you, and this one where we factored all 3 of them with the different forms. So these would be very 2 useful guides as you're working through and studying as well. So we are going to leave this time open for you. And ask us questions if you have any. There's
And
2 of us.
just a few things about Monday's test. I will have your class's Zoom link open at 7 o'clock. So if you have questions that you want to go over prior to the test, you can join anytime from 7 to 7:20 and I will answer any questions. Once 7:20 hits, we will be starting the test and I will be opening the test up to you through Google Classroom. So again, come at 7 o'clock, 7:10 if you have questions, and I will answer any questions you have up until 7:20, and then we will start the test. The test will have 3 problems on it that look similar to the 6 that you have tonight. So you definitely need to understand how to graph each type of function. There will be questions on there where you'll be asked to solve, and it'll just say to solve, and you'll have to kind of decide which method you want to use. Yes, there will be a word problem. There'll be a few questions where you'll be writing the equation for the function. So you'll be given maybe the intercepts and a point, or you'll be given the vertex and a point. You'll be asked to write the equation. So I'd say very similar to the practice test that was in the book that you did for homework last night. It is a 3-page test. So in terms of sending it to Notability, you would have 3 slides to complete. You will not be given any extra time. You will lose points if you turn it in late. So at this point, like we're almost done with the second marking period, tests need to be submitted on time. So I strongly suggest that you maybe pick 10 questions for yourself over the weekend from the review and or the practice test or from previous homework problems, and time yourself to see how long it is taking you to work through the problems. But there is no extra time given on tests. So some of you I know in the middle school, it was a little different, but in the high school building, we all give tests that are really designed to be about 25, 30 minutes, but you'll have a 40-minute period to complete them. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Yes, your camera needs to be on. That is also a requirement if you want to receive credit for taking the test. Any questions? So as Ms. Karp said, you have about 20 minutes, it looks like, to ask questions. Any questions that you want to ask on anything that we've done, you can stay on and work on the graphing review worksheet and ask questions as you're working through it. Or if you'd like, you can leave the Zoom and work on it individually and rejoin if you have questions. Ms. Karp, do you have anything extra to add?
No, just make sure you're looking at the comments on your assignments. There have been comments made to all of your homework assignments up until last night's practice test book work. I will be working on them today and give you comments back on your book work that was due tonight. So anyone that's in Google Classroom, you will be getting comments back today. So just make sure you are looking at them. And if you don't understand what I mean, say, Ms. Karp, you're making no sense. What do you mean here? I'm confused. It won't hurt my feelings. I want to make those comments so that you understand what went wrong and what to fix.